some interesting stories about some of the guys from Bedford. Roger Goff, he was the first one. Alfred Robinson was the second from Bedford to get killed, and he was the first African American. He was the first black to be killed from Bedford. There were two black fellows from Bedford that got killed. Michael Mormon from Thaxton was the third, and I talked to his brother. I tracked his brother down, and he said that the Army records that I obtained from the Department of Defense stated that he died of a heart attack in Vietnam. And his brother said that 3 months after he died, his roommate came to visit them and said it wasn't a heart attack. Said that he had pneumonia, and they took him to the doctor at night, and the doctor was drunk and wouldn't administer him. And so the doctor said, "Tell him to come on back in the morning. We'll take care of him then." Well, he died that night. Of course, they couldn't put that on his military records, I guess, and it was unfortunate. Tucker Oliver was a fairly celebrated soldier from Bedford. He lived over off of Lake Drive, over in that vicinity of Bedford, where the town pond is, and he was a pilot. And my understanding, he didn't have any brothers and sisters, and his mom and dad are dead. His relatives are scarce. I have talked to one of his cousins, and from my understanding, Tucker was discharged after serving his tour in Vietnam, but he felt so strong about the people he left there doing the job that he didn't tell his mother until the night before he left that he re-enlisted. They volunteered for another mission, and I think he was only over there a couple days. It was not very long at all when he got shot down, and he was killed. And the fifth person killed was from Anita, and that was Elmer Nance. And it just kind of shows you what a small world it is. When I started researching Elmer Nance, somewhere a thought came through my mind that I remembered when I was in the 3rd grade. My teacher, or 4th grade, my teacher's name was Ms. Nance. And I remember she didn't come to school one day, and the principal came in and said her husband had been killed in Vietnam. And I said, it's just too much of a coincidence. So when I finally got in touch with her, she said, "I remember you." And it's a small world, is all I can say. And it was just very emotional to reconnect with her after 45 years. I hadn't seen her in 45 years. And it's a very sad story that she told me. She had a 9-month-old, I think her child was 9 months old when Elmer died. And I contacted with him, and he's in New Mexico now. He'd never talked to anyone that really had known his dad during his military service. And I was able to connect him with his dad's roommate when they went to OCS school together. And so he heard all kinds of wonderful stories about his father that he wouldn't have been able to hear if we hadn't begun this project. So it's already been very rewarding for me up to this point. But the other thing about him is that Ms. Nance, his wife, told me that after he died, at the time, this public sentiment towards Vietnam veterans was so bad. Number one, when he was alive, she didn't even tell people that her husband was a soldier because of how they treated her. And then when he died, she was afraid to mourn in public. She said, "I couldn't go out in public and mourn because I was afraid I'd be ridiculed and people would tell me that he deserved to die." And I just think, as a society, how sad that is that you lose your loved one like that and you can't mourn. She said she quit watching TV. She just dropped out of anything to do with television because she didn't want to see news stories. She didn't get to see the first landing on the moon, and when that happened, just a lot of things she missed, and she just buried herself into education, and she retired a few years ago as an educator and lives here in Bedford County. But I just thought that was so sad that she's lost her loved one, and she just doesn't feel like she can mourn. The sixth person was George Davis. He was a African American from Bedford also, and I know very little about him. I believe most of his family, I think, is in Pittsburgh, and I've talked to people that remembered him, but they didn't know. Nobody knew how to get in touch with him. Lonnie Parker was the seventh one in 1968, and he's from Thaxton, and I talked to his sister quite often, a couple of his sisters. I wanted to show you some stuff on the computer, but I couldn't get a signal out here. I've got a Facebook page, Vietnam War Memorial Garden in Bedford, Virginia, that I get a lot of responses back from family members of the 19. It's just of the 12. I mean, it's very rewarding to me to be in contact with these people. So if I have any questions on a lot of them, they set me straight real quick. You know, when I talked about Lonnie one time, and I listed his brother that I knew and his sister that I knew and another sister, and they were real quick to tell me that I forgot one. So it's just real good to have them knowing that somebody is talking about Lonnie Parker. I knew his dad, didn't know until after I started this that was his son, because as long as I knew his dad, I just never put the two and two together. It's just been very rewarding. Eddie Daniels was the eighth, and he's the one, I think they had, I think it was 11, 12, or 13 of them. Johnny Daniels, Bobby and Eddie and Van. It was a big, big family, and they're the ones who lost one son in Korea, then lost Eddie in Vietnam, and then Van got wounded in Vietnam, and then they were going to draft Doug, but he got pardon from a governor because he said, that's enough for your family. Your family's, seen enough. The ninth one is Kenny Fink, and he was from in town in Bedford, and Kenny, my understanding is he got wounded twice. They sent him home, and I think he was back in the States for about 7 months before he died, and he died in the Bedford hospital, if I understand. And they had a real difficult time getting his name placed on the wall because initially it was just for people that died in country, I guess. And so, my personal opinion, man, he deserves to be on the wall, and so does anybody that dies today from Agent Orange. I mean, if you died as a result of Vietnam War, I think we honor you by putting your name on the wall. Kenny's kin to his mother was a Key, and that's Bunny Key, Robert Key. Over in Keytown is a big family of those fellows too, and there's a lot of Dallas Key over here at the lake. He's a realtor at the lake. It's his uncle or his cousin. He was married to Veronica Hanner Fink, and he had a sister, Vicky, and she's still living in Bedford. But Kenny and Eddie are probably the ones that I knew the best, but I didn't know them. My brothers and sisters knew them. But that was Kenny Fink. The 10th one is Alan Tyler, and Alan is from Villamont, from up in Montvale, and I've talked with his sister Elsie, and he got a Bronze Star, I believe. So did Roger Goff down in Bedford. Down in Big Island, he got a Bronze Star. The 11th one is Henry Wayne Garrett, also from Montvale. I've talked to his brother, but I know very little about the circumstances around his death. John Samuel Myers from Manita, he was the final victim or casualty from Bedford. And I had just a heck of a time getting a hold of him, his family. His wife had remarried, and his wife's husband told me that he should have gotten a Medal of Honor. He worked for his wife's husband after he got out, worked for the VA for about 34 years, and knows the circumstances of his death very well, and said that without a doubt he probably should have gotten a Medal of Honor for the heroic actions he got. He did get a Bronze Star and some other medals, but